Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Creative Academy, your go-to source for accountability, coaching, and community for writers. I'm Crystal Stranahan, and today we're chatting about the Yahtzee method of getting your words on the page with the best-selling author, KC Dyer. So first, thank you, Casey, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
I'm really excited to have our students and members learn about the Yahtzee method because I know it's something you created, and I think it's brilliant, and it's worked for me in the past. So I'm really hoping to share that out and have more people benefit from that.
Yeah, excellent.
But first, though, before we dive into that, can you tell us just a little bit more about yourself and your books and kind of where you're coming from?
Okay. Well, I'm a Canadian writer. I live in BC, in the wilds of BC. You can see behind my house there. We're not on fire right now, which is a good thing. I was on Vancouver Island yesterday, and it was on fire. There was a big fire right outside Nanaimo. So, but here we've got blue sky, and it's a lovely evening. So what do I do? My most recent book, I've written many books. That I've had 7 novels published, traditionally and self-published. Only 1 self-published, and the rest traditionally published. So that makes me a hybrid, I think. The most recent novel is called Finding Fraser, and Finding Fraser is a romantic comedy for adults. My most recent novel for teens is called Facing Fire, which it's so funny that they both ended up with alliterative F titles. That was just complete coincidence. But it's from a series that began with a walk through a window, so it's not too alliterative. And anyway, so I write books for kids and teens and adults, and right now I'm just finishing up the first book to a new series for grown-ups, and also one for kids. So lots of writing, lots of words down on the page. For many years, I've been affiliated with the Surrey International Writers Conference, so currently, my current role with the conference is that I am the contest coordinator. It's a volunteer position. For many years, I was on the board, and for a few years, I even ran the place. And so now it is in way more capable hands, and I can go back to being a writing girl. And so that's what I am.
So you've had to get clever to fit your writing in and amongst and around all of those other things, and to still hit those word counts even when life was just happening all around you. So
yes, absolutely.
So this is,
I actually, when I came up with the Yahtzee idea, it was really from my own experience of having, being a single parent and having to write my books in times when I was not being with my kids and doing the other jobs that I did. I was a freelance newspaper writer, and I produced a paper for 10 years in my small village, and so I had all this other stuff going on, and this is where the inklings, I think, of the Yahtzee method sort of began to grow. But it was actually for a friend that I ended up putting the thing together in its current functional state, and so and it was because she, as a writer, was leading a life where she had so many balls in the air. It was hard to find time to fit her writing in. And I think that a lot of people can relate to that feeling.
Absolutely. So when you say Yahtzee method, can you give us the snapshot? Like, what is that? What does that mean? I mean, we all think rolling dice and scratching things off paper, but
sure. Well, you know what? Maybe we should explain what Yahtzee is, because there may be people who aren't even familiar with the game, who, maybe were not born in the previous century like some of the rest of us. So Yahtzee Yahtzee, although apparently Yahtzee is now it now exists in a digital version online. But how I first came to Yahtzee was when I was a little kid, because it was a great game that you could take with you to play in the car when you were on trips, or if you were on the bus on the way to school or something like that. So it's basically a little cup. It comes with a few dice, 5 dice maybe in the cup, and you shake the dice and you throw them onto the table, and then from the resultant numbers that turn up on the dice, you tick boxes off on your score sheet. So your score sheet asks you, for example, to look for a pair of 2s, and so you would, when you rolled a pair of 2s, then you could tick that off on your score sheet, and then you moved on to finding some of the other ones. Now, the key to Yahtzee was that the combinations that were requested in order to win got harder. And so there were many combinations where you would have to have a full house, and it would specify the full house. So you'd have to have a full house made of 3s and 2s, or you could choose the full house that you got on your roll. So as it behooved the player to try to get the hard ones off the page first, because it was easier to come up with a pair of 2s than it was to come up with a straight, which was ace through 5 in your dice. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. That was difficult to roll a straight. So if you ever rolled a straight, that was good news. You ticked the straight off, and then you were left with the easier ones. So this was the principle behind the Yahtzee method for writing. So I don't know, can you pull a picture up of it on the screen?
Yeah, I sure can. I'm just going to share the screen here, and I will share the desktop. I've got your sheet that you sent me up there, so everybody can see it.
So this is a sample version of the Yahtzee method. It's really just a page of you can see it's an Excel document, and so the beauty of this method is that it works for regardless of the time period that you have, I mean, it's completely customizable. So let's just use the one that we have in front of us as an example. So in this case, the writer that I was helping, we found ourselves in the middle of April, and she wanted to have a book ready to pitch at the Surrey Writers Conference, which is in October. And so she was short. She was about halfway through her book at the time. And so what I did was I designed a writing schedule for her, depending on predicated on the number of words per day for the remaining months that she had in front of her. Now, the complication in her life was that she had a job, and she also was the mother to a school-aged child. So what happened was that she couldn't possibly write every day. She didn't have the ability to structure her life so that every day was free for writing. But she could write most days, even if it was only a small amount of words. So the way that we set it up was that most of the days in the months that were remaining we set up as 500-word days, because she felt like a 500-word day she could pretty safely always write 500 words. Many days she would sit down, the time would vanish, and she would look up and she'd written 1,200 words, and that would be awesome. But it wasn't every day. So what she would do is she would sit down to write, depending, regardless of the day. She would have her, at some points she only had, a half an hour to 45 minutes to write. So she would take that time, she'd sit down, write the words that she got. When she was finished, she'd look up at the screen, look at her word count, and then she'd turn to her Yahtzee schedule, and she would tick off the number of words that she'd managed to accomplish in that day. So let's say in April, she had the first day, let's say she wrote 750 words. So there wasn't a 750-word day registered on April. So she would tick off a 500-word day as complete. But let's say that she made 1,100 words one day. Then she could tick off 1,000 words, and she only needed 3,000-word days in the whole month of April. So when she had a great writing day, if you look at the schedule, she needed to have 5 great writing days in the month of April, where she would hit 1,000 or 1,500 words, and the rest of the days she could, if she managed her 500 words, then she would meet her goal. And there were some days where she just couldn't get to it at all, because at this point, when she was doing this, she was also on the school parent committee. So she was on her school pack, she was doing a full-time job, she was being a mom, and she was trying to write. And so there were some days that she just needed to have a day off. And so she was able to take a day off without guilt, because she was still ticking off something on her chart. So it was a very, it ended up being a really successful tactic for her to use, because it incentivized her to have a bigger day. She would like to get those the higher numbered, more successful writing days off her plate. But she also had room for the days where it wasn't so great. And every month she had, the way, if you take a look at May, for example, she's got a day off every week where her kid is home and she can't get to the keyboard, and so she can tick off a day off without guilt. So our experience with this particular individual as a writer was amazing, because not only did she have the incentive of the Yahtzee schedule, because she printed it off and she stuck it above her computer so that it was there. It was a visual reminder, and she could actually see her progress, ticking off the days. She used different colors for her 500 word and 1,000 word days. So she had this colorful progress happening on her Yahtzee schedule. But also, what happened was that her child saw the schedule. And so her child then would say to her, "Well, Mom, did you get your words in today?" And so it ended up being a double incentive for her. So the happy news in this story was that she was able to, and you'll notice that in July and August, this is the time when parents have their children home from school. Writing days are much sketchier. They're fewer and farther between. To be able to sit down when you've got a 10-year-old and pound out 500 words and still keep the child entertained, it's a handful. So there were more days off in July and August than there were in May and June. But the goal was that she would get her word count to a point by the end of June that she only had a couple of thousand words to finish before she was ready to work on her manuscript. Then by the time she'd made it through August, back in September, the kid is back in school. She gets to spend the month of September doing revision, and then in October she would have a book to pitch. And in fact, the year she did this, she did pitch that book, and she successfully got an agent with the pitch of that book. So it was the whole Yahtzee plan really worked very well for her.
Nice. And so for people out there thinking, okay, maybe this will work for me, who do you think it does work for? Like, who is this ideally geared towards?
I think it's really geared towards someone who is who's got a lot going on. If you're a full-time writer, you've got a different kind of schedule happening, and so this is I think ideal for somebody who's trying to find time in their life to write their passion. And they have a story that they really want to write, but they, every time they go to sit down to write it, something else distracts them, something takes them away from it. And so this is an ideal way to focus your attention just for that short period of time, and to see an actual, system of rewards developing right before your eyes as the chart fills up. It's also completely customizable. So you can set it up. You can look at this chart, set it up for the next 6 months, set it up for a year. Let's say you want to write a novel this year. You can set up a Yahtzee writing schedule with your entire year. Okay, so what's this that we're looking at here?
This is one that I made after you told me about your Yahtzee system ages ago, and I wanted to write a series of short stories for Harlequin Line. So it's just just to switch up the visuals. So it's just a different version of the same thing. And right. So my goal had been that, each month I wanted to write one short story that I could submit to somewhere. And so this was the goal. This was based on the target word count being 10 to 15,000 words, and then the title at the top. And then I had put a day for outlining on the schedule so that was one of the things I could cross off. And
that's a great idea, actually. I really like that adaptation, because sometimes you have a more specific goal in mind than just a specific word count, and to identify that as a goal, that's something that you can cross off, is really good. Now, I noticed that you have just set yours up with 500 word increments. So,
yes.
So in this case, like, let's say you had a really great day and you got 2,000 words down. Would you cross off 5 boxes?
I would, 4 boxes, but 4. Yes. I might be tempted to cross off.
Math is not the strong point here. Yeah. Okay. So 4 boxes. So if you had a 2,000 word day, that's what you do, right?
And that's why I didn't have a whole bunch of days off in there, because I feel like I didn't want to give myself permission to not try too many days in a row. Because for me, I know that's the danger is leaving things. And
but
so
you've also not tied this to a timing schedule. So it's a slightly different adaptation, because like you don't actually have dates on there that are specific. Like you haven't.
No.
Are each of these set? So for example, each of these is set to work for a single month.
Yeah, I had handwritten the month that I was going to work on this story.
So this is like 4 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so basically it's still a month. It's a month of work. So it's a daily schedule. So, but what it means though, when you set up a schedule like this, is that you can buy yourself a few days, right?
Exactly.
So if you have a really good writing day, you can surge ahead and say, I'm actually good till Friday. So if you have something that's going to come up and you're not going to be able to work on it for a particular day, then that's a different way to buy yourself some extra time, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I do have other ones that I set up for other books that were more similar to your original one, in that they have all different amounts of things in different categories of days, and sort of knowing your own writing speed is important. Like, everybody's so different. For some people, getting 500 words is an epic day. And for other people, they write real fast. So a couple thousand words is possible, or maybe your schedule's not quite as crammed. So just knowing for you what's achievable, and making sure that you scale it appropriately, because it doesn't matter if it's going to take 2 months or 3 months or 1 month to finish the same project. It matters that you finish the project. And so, scaling that to fit your own situation is why this, I think, is such a powerful tool. It's not just a rote template that you plug and play. You can use the ones that are there as a starting place, but you can customize it to fit exactly what you're doing. And if well, I'm away for half of August, or, it's Christmas and there's going to be family here and all this extra stuff, then you budget accordingly, and it helps you set realistic goals, which is, one of the things I most love about this.
Yeah. Well, for me, this was in terms of a writing hack, I consider this a motivational hack. So this is a way to help direct your motivation, so that you actually you set achievable goals, and that you can see yourself moving forward. So to me, that was the beauty of this, was that you can set it so that it works for you. And you are completely right, by the way, on that front. I mean, I know lots of writers who are 3,000 to 5,000 words a day, and they just think that that's a piece of cake. Where, like, for me personally, if I can get 2,000 words in a run-in, that's like a great day. But when you've got small children, like when I was writing when my children were small, and I was writing the book mostly after my first book, I wrote mostly after midnight, and because that was my quiet, it was a quiet, peaceful time, and I'm a night person, and so I could, I'd write from their bedtime till like 1 or 1:30 in the morning, and I'd make my 300 to 500 words, because that's all I could do. But I still got a book in a year. Like when I set myself the goal, I still got a book in a year. So it's definitely doable, and it's doable on a, even if you have so little time that you can budget for writing, this allows you to budget that time.
Yeah.
I found it very motivational. And if you wanted, I can read you the comment.
Sure.
Kathy's comment here's what she said when I asked her about feedback on this particular system. She said, "This deceptively simple tool made all the difference. With the chart staring at me from behind my screen, it was almost impossible not to convince myself that I could manage at least 500 words so I could color in a box that day and save days off for when I really needed them. Sometimes I'd push 500 to 750 or 1,000 and save the 500 for a worse writing day, so it would always be there for the, come on, I can do a measly 500 words conversation with myself." So her daughter, who was 11 at the time, also, jumped on the schedule bandwagon. And as I told you, she became the daily word police, and she pushed her to stick with it. And, she finished the draft.
Nice.
Yeah.
So a few really solid things out of here. One, have community, like have people who are supporting you that you've acknowledged and publicly stated your goals to so that they can hold you accountable to it. Two, have something fun, like small goals that you can color off something that really gives you that little
Or you can
boost.
put stickers on it or whatever.
Happy face stickers, little stars, I'm all over that.
Yeah.
And then really just giving yourself permission to do small pieces, to just
Yeah.
get that one little step closer to the goal, and just keep inching forward until you eventually inch your way a mile or two.
Yeah. It's just amazing. It's just amazing how you can find your way forward when you're taking even little teeny steps.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing this with us, Casey. I'm excited to blast it out there and let people have some fun with it.
I'd love to hear any feedback that people, I mean, I've done this, I've talked about this method because, now let me see. So the little girl who was 11 in this is now almost 19. And so this has been a system that I've been using and talking about for more than 5 years. And I've had, nothing but positive feedback from it. Lots of people who've really made it their own. And that's what I love about it, because it's, there's nothing proprietarial about this. You find a system that works for you. And if that helps drive you forward, then yay.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We will be sure to add the templates that we have, and people can select from a range of options. And also, hopefully, they'll share theirs as well. So if you out there watching come up with your own awesome template as a starting place, share it back with us, and we'll make sure everybody else gets their hands on it as well. So now it's time for all of you to get back to writing, which is what we're going to do. So thanks again, Casey, and we'll see you all soon. Bye. Thank you for being a part of this Creative Academy event. If you're not a member yet, join us today and unlock a wealth of resources, masterclasses, feedback opportunities, and online community events designed to help you reach the next step in your writing journey. No matter what stage you're at, we've got a helping hand to guide you along the way. Check out our free resource room if you'd like to get a taste of how we can help you reach your writing and publishing goals. Thank you for bringing us along on your writing and publishing journey, and Donna, Eileen, and I hope we'll see you around the Creative Academy soon.